JT Smith for the TFON Podcast here for Season 5, Episode 8. And if you know, the Bearcats will be traveling to Ames, Iowa. So I traveled to Ames, Iowa virtually and got my guy, Bill Seals, here from CycloneReport.com from the Rivals Network. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, JT. I appreciate you having me on, and great talking to you here for the first time.
Oh, no problem, man. Appreciate you taking some time out to talk some UC Iowa State. It's a lot of familiar faces, I guess on both sides. So it's pretty cool about that. I guess we'll start it off, man. You know, Tyson Veit, the Bearcats' new defensive coordinator. He was a guy that was around, the Iowa State program, as a linebacker coach, there. What's your impressions on Tyson Veit, and how do you, like, from the outside looking in, how do you feel like he's done, with the Bearcats?
He was one of my favorite coaches to cover while he was at Iowa State. So it's always great to catch up with him whenever I got him off on the side somewhere at a camp or a practice or whatever. So I think he's been a great addition for Cincinnati and kind of taken the template of the Iowa State 3-3-5 defense and taking it there to Cincinnati and I think added maybe a few of his own wrinkles to that. So it's another week for Iowa State of facing, maybe a somewhat of a familiar, an opponent that has some familiar faces in it. The Cyclones faced Kansas last week, had a couple of players that went to Lawrence out of the transfer portal that knew the Cyclones pretty well, and also a member of Iowa State staff just as of last spring had moved on to Kansas as well. So, here we are 1 week later, and Tyson Veit, someone I think that knows Iowa State very well and probably going to know a lot of that offensive playbook, I would imagine. So it's going to be interesting to see maybe what changes on Iowa State's perspective. And Iowa State, I think by now, going through the Big 12, it's always a grind, and you're going to see familiar faces, I think, throughout the conference at different stops. And this week, certainly no other with Tyson Veit and all that he knows about the program. And, not only is he going to have a pretty good idea what he's going to see offensively as he schemed against him in practice for the better part of eight years while he was under Matt Campbell. But I think also he's going to have a pretty good idea offensively and defensively, really. So I think he's probably going to have an idea maybe what John Haycock's going to draw up out of his own 3-3-5. So I think tough preparation for the Cyclones this week going against someone like Veit.
And then with Iowa State, the Big 12 is still in your guys' reach, 7-2, couple of tough losses lately. What has made, I know the losing streak lately, but what has made this team, especially on the offensive end, such a surprise to people? I know people had them in the top tier of the Big 12 coming in, but I feel like them being a top 3 team in this conference, I think it's kind of caught some people off guard, maybe. But what's been the recipe to success for Iowa State?
Well, I think the schedule was very favorable for them to start the year, and even as I kind of looked at things and in July and August, I actually foresaw them getting off to a really good start. I think getting by Iowa in week 2 kind of paved the way for that 7-0 start. But the calendar flipping to November and now the teams that they close out the regular season with are no joke. That started with Texas Tech. And then they go to Kansas. How many people had Kansas in that CFP at the start of the year? And it's just not really worked out their way. So Kansas was no joke. And, now Cincinnati, a winning team as well. And then they're going to get Utah on the road and K-State at home. So this November schedule's no joke. And as I was mentioning, the grind of the Big 12. And I think as far as the root of a lot of those problems, I'm going to point back to the defensive side of the ball. What we talked about there with Veit moving on. He was the linebackers coach. Well, some of the talk yesterday in the press conference in Ames is a lot of that 3-3-5 is not necessarily It's who's playing it or how you're playing it. Well, Iowa State, with so many injuries, really at all three levels, kind of started on the defensive end. They haven't really had a full allotment of linebackers really since camp, and have kind of fought through that. Well, the latest was Dominic Orange, one of their starting interior guys on the D line, didn't make the trip to Lawrence. He's supposedly nicked up. And then on the back end, Malik Verdon tried to play through. It looks like he's got some kind of broken wrist or arm. He had a club on that in the game against Texas Tech, and just couldn't go after the first series against Kansas. So now you've got starters on the back end of what was a very good secondary, and the D line. They've got injuries there now too. So I think that points to a lot of the problems that they've had on defense when you're rolling out guys that in July and, well, as they got into camp in August, these are second and third string guys, and now they're in there playing meaningful snaps in November in the Big 12.
Yeah, that injuries do creep up on you. So for this game on Saturday, who are guys that you know are out? And then who are guys that are kind of like 50-50 that may play, or that are significant on both sides of the ball?
Well, I'm not sure they're going to get anybody back, to be honest with you, JT. I think it's probably going to be a similar lineup or a rotation of players that you saw against Kansas. There wasn't really any further word on Dominic Orange at the defensive tackle position, if he's going to be back. Malik Verdon, I think that's going to be a longer-term thing with him. TFON James is who filled in for him at Kansas. I would expect he probably gets the start there at one of those three safety spots. Then they've had some other guys just kind of fighting through injuries, really. Bo Freeler, one of those other safeties, a shoulder, been bugging him for a while. He's played through it. Cale Brazina, one of those injured linebackers, they actually got him back a few weeks ago, but he's kind of been on, I guess, what you'd call maybe a snap count or a pitch count, so to speak. So they're kind of bringing him back along. On the offensive side, tight end Ben Bramer. He's the probably still, I think, the third leading receiver on the team, and he's been out 2 weeks now. So just further kind of solidifies the fact that Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, those are the top two guys at wide receiver, and beyond those two, haven't been a whole lot of targets to go around. And now Bramer's out. I think probably for the foreseeable future with him as well.
And then on the offensive side of the ball, your quarterback has made a heck of a leap from last year to this year. Just talk about his leap that you've seen, and then just how are the Bearcats going to have to contain this young man? Because I feel like when they played them here in Cincinnati, it was one of those games that early I feel like the Bearcats had a chance, and then once the wheels fell off, it just seemed like you guys were able to do anything. But just from watching them from afar, I feel like he's just taken a bigger step from last year, of course, with more gameplay.
Yeah, I think you look back at that Cincinnati game last season as probably maybe the start of the rise of Rocco Becht and what he showed as a redshirt freshman at that point. Yeah. He went into that offseason not even really expecting to be the starting quarterback, and circumstances changed there. The returning starter kind of got mixed up in that gambling stuff that hit Iowa State a year ago. Hunter Deckers was the quarterback at that point, and he was caught up in that and missed all of last season due to all that investigation. And Rocco Becht ascends into the starting role. I think they kind of handled him maybe with kid gloves, I guess you could say, through the first maybe 4 or 5 games of that season before they kind of started trusting him with more. Well, now you see him this Iowa State-Cincinnati matchup, and I think a different player as he's gained a lot more confidence from the coaching staff, from his own teammates. And I think one thing with him is with Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, those two wide receivers are 1A, 1B, really. I mean, he's pretty much all of his targets go to those two players right there. And they're a tough matchup for Cincinnati's cornerbacks, I think. So I think just Noel and Higgins also have been big reasons for why Rocco's taken such a huge step this season. I will say pick sixes have become an issue. However, with Rocco, he threw one against Kansas as they were kind of trying to rally in the second half of that game, and that pretty much put the game out of reach at that point. So that's also been something that has been discussed with the media and with Rocco and Coach Campbell and them is trying to limit those as they have kind of I don't know, maybe cast a shadow on what's been really a breakout season for Rocco, just statistically, completion percentage, touchdowns. By the time he's done in Ames, he's probably going to have broken a lot of the records that Brock Purdy holds now. Obviously, the 49ers starting quarterback now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm a big 49er fan, so I'm team
Right.
Brock Purdy. I remember him at Iowa State. I was like, dang, I didn't see this. Like, it's crazy,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'll get to talking too long if we start talking about Brock. So I'm team
Right.
Brock. So yeah, man. Those receivers, the press conference for Coach Satterfield was yesterday, and he talked glowingly about those receivers, about how they're big play guys and how they have to limit those big plays, and that'd be very key for the for the game. With the defense, Iowa State having so many injuries on the defensive side, if you were the Bearcats, how would you try to attack them? Because our passing game lately, since the competition has gotten a little tougher, hasn't been as crisp as it was earlier in the season. Just being honest, you look at the stats last week and see Sorsby throw over 250 yards, but it's kind of like fool's gold, kind of
In
a
the
little
second
bit.
half, most of those yards.
Yeah, and so it wasn't as good, and it's just been like the last few games they haven't been as sharp. So if the running game's been solid all year, they have multiple guys. They do have people in the pass game, but I feel like people have kind of taken Xavier Henderson away a little bit, and they've kind of controlled Joe Royer. If you were the Bearcats, how would you attack this injured Iowa State team? Because the Bearcats are 5-4. Tough game. They lost a tough game last week, another tough game against you guys, and they have Kansas State on the road afterwards, and then they come back home to TCU. It's kind of like not great, but they've kind of fixed things a little bit where it's not just the easy win that you kind of thought at the beginning of the year. So I'm sorry for getting long-winded, but how would you attack them?
Well, I think it starts on the ground with Corey Kiner. He was one that I know that they were really concerned with going into last season's matchup.
Yeah.
And Iowa State's rush defense, it kind of started to go downhill to a degree last season. And I think it's probably safe to say the wheels have come off this stretch of games here of late, just with all the injuries and linebacker being the way that it is. So I think it's going to start with Kiner and getting that ground game going. Iowa State and with Dominic Orange too, and not knowing his status, one of those interior guys in the 3-3-5, I'm sure. If you talk to Coach Veit, he'll say how you play up the middle in that 3-3-5 is going to be the key. And not having Orange as one of those interior guys, another hit for this unit. So I think it's got to start with them establishing the ground game. They've been Iowa State's been susceptible at times to some of those mobile quarterbacks. If you go back through the season, some of the mobile quarterbacks that they face, they have been able to kind of scramble and extend the play and maybe move the chains on 3rd and long. So there's certainly that maybe for the taking with Sorsby, if a play breaks down, that maybe he can extend that and pick up the first down. So I think that again, it's got to start with Corey Kiner in this one, I think.
That's fair. That's fair. Breakdown. That's what I like to hear. No, but Bill. So now I'm putting your feet to the fire. I'm gonna ask for a prediction.
Well, I think it's going to be a closer game that maybe than what the point spread is right now. I think there's some turmoil right now, just defensively, and how that Kansas game happened. It's just we haven't seen an Iowa State defense play that poorly in a game. I mean, it made sense with the playmakers that Kansas had, but I think that that this is a team just two weeks ago they were 7-0 and ranked in the first college football playoff rankings, kind of had the inside track to join BYU and play for the conference championship, and now here we are 2 weeks later. And I think, three Big 12 teams probably at the forefront of that right now, and Iowa State on the outside looking in. So you just wonder what the mentality, what the focus is going to be. They'll, all the players and coaches will tell you that the preparation isn't going to struggle, that it's going to be the same, team that's prepared well and focused well. But I just wonder how much of that's taken a hit though with that loss to Kansas. So I think it's going to be a lot closer. I'd like to say that the Cyclone's probably going to pull this one out, maybe by 2 or 3 points, but I think it's going to be a close game, and it could be one that they have to rally from late, because it's also a team that hasn't started well either. Up until last week against Kansas, they had given up opening drive. The defense had given up opening drive touchdowns, I think, in like 6 of 8 weeks. So certainly would not be surprised to see Cincinnati leading in this one down the stretch. And, maybe Rocco Becht, he's engineered some of those fourth quarter comebacks this season. I think he has to engineer another one here for the Cyclones to get by. But, and I would not be surprised to see Cincinnati come in and win the game either, just with the kind of the struggles the Cyclones are having right now. But I think if you're holding my feet to the fire, I think it's probably going to be somewhere maybe in that 2 to 3 point range for a Cyclone victory on Saturday.
That's fair. It's a game that's another pick'em game. Before the struggles, I thought this was just being honest, I thought this was going to be an easy Iowa State victory. But now I feel like, Bearcats always going to keep it tight. Nobody's really just take them to the shed. But now I feel like the Bearcats do have a chance that they can play clean. What killed them last week, just real bad turnovers. So we'll see what happens, man. I appreciate
Iowa
you.
State, I think Iowa State playing at home is going to help. It's a pretty good home field, or in basketball, certainly a home court advantage.
Oh, for sure.
And they're going to need. I think they're going to need to rely on that. They're going to need to rely on Cyclone Nation and the students, the fans, maybe to kind of dig deep and I think gut out a pretty close victory on Saturday. They're going to need them there.
All right. And then my last question is kind of an offbeat question. I just thought about that, how you talked about Cyclone Nation. Cyclone Larry, have you had any dealings with him?
I have not met Cyclone Larry, but he's got quite a presence. I know UCF fans really have an affinity for him, but no, I don't know who the identity of Cyclone Larry is.
Dang, I was hoping you were insider, or hoping you would know who he was. We got a couple that I don't know either, but yeah, that guy, he knows how to get a stir out of people, so I respect it. Coming from a conference that the fans didn't care as much, it's cool, even if somebody's ribbing on you, that you got fans that care, that want to take shots at you. It's cool, because trust me, being in the AAC,
in basketball they've got Cyclone Jim Carey now too. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
No.
A fan that sits low and really gets riled up in the lower level of Hilton Coliseum, and he looks just like Jim Carey. So that'll be one for you to look up to.
Okay, I'll keep tabs on that.
Today. Yeah.
For sure. I'll keep tabs on that. So that's my offbeat question. I had to get that one off for the fans. But now that we're done, let everybody know where they can find your work, where they can find you on social media, and give whatever shout outs you want to give out right now.
Yeah, we're the Iowa State site on Rivals network of team sites. Cyclone Report been on Cyclone Report's actually been on Rivals, was one of the first sites to jump on board. I think, back in maybe 2001, 2002. So the site's been on Rivals for a long time. You can find me at William Seals on X, and also at Cyclone Report is another way to access a lot of the links to stories and stuff like that. So good place to go on Rivals, and tons of good content your way daily.
Yep. Well, guys, make sure if you got any Iowa State questions, you check out cyclonereport.com. Good place. As you tell, he's very connected. He's been doing this for a while. But Bill, I appreciate your time, man. Greatly appreciate it. And in the TFON network, guys, I'm JT Smith, and I'm signing out.